The two most common cartridges in the US are the 9mm and the 22 long rifle. These are both very different cartridges and they have totally different uses. But they're both on the cheaper price point and they both have enough power for their intended uses. So they're a very great choice for most people. The 9mm is your cheapest all-around pistol cartridge, and your 22 long rifle is your cheapest all-around small caliber cartridge. But they both serve a very specific and very different use. I'm Jordy Buck, and this is Michigan Sharpshooters, helping you become well regulated so together we can preserve our freedoms. So 9mm, if you're thinking about 9mm handguns, you're probably thinking defensive use. That's the most common application for the 9mm in the US, is as a defensive, home defensive, or as a everyday carry defensive pistol. But the 9mm has more uses than just defensive use. The 9mm has some hunting potential. The 9mm has more than enough potential for any type of small game and for a lot of medium-sized game, even up to some of the antelope-sized animals. The 9mm really will do the job at close to mid-range, especially if you're looking at some of the carbines with a 16-inch barrel, like the Ruger Pc Carbine, which I do want to get one of those at some point here. They're pretty fun-looking guns. The 22 long rifle is, well, it's 22 caliber, and it's very, very small. There's almost no recoil to it, and that's really what people love best about it. Recoil and cheap. A box of 50 22 long rifle are usually available for between $3 and $5, whereas a box of 59mm for the cheaper ones are usually available for somewhere between $13 and $16. So there's a big difference in price there. If you're looking for something purely for going out and shooting holes in paper, like I like to do here, I would say that the 22 is a fine option. It's great for working on your marksmanship. It's got some merit for small game hunting, but it starts to really lose out a lot. Once you get to a little distance, past about 50 yards, a lot of the 22 cartridges, 22 long rifle, they just don't have a lot of energy left in the bullet. Some of them do, but you got to choose your ammo. Now, if you're looking for something small game, either of these cartridges will work, either the 9mm or the 22 long rifle. They will both work great for small game, and actually I'm considering going the route of sort of replacing my 22 up on the wall, my Ruger 1022. Not actually replacing it, I'm going to keep it, but I'm looking at getting another rifle for my general use, small game, plinking style gun, and that's the Ruger Pc Carbine, their 9mm carbine. It's the same size as that little rifle up on the wall, but it shoots the 9mm instead, and it takes Glock magazines, which would be pretty cool. The reason I'm considering that is because of power. The 9mm has more power. Your average 9mm bullet has about 350 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Your average 22 long rifle bullet has about 120 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Now, you can get higher with both of these. The 9mm, with the best bullet and the fastest, hottest powders you can get in here, and still loading it safely, you have a maximum of about 400, 410 or so foot-pounds of energy that you can squeeze out of the 9mm. With the 22 long rifle, you have a maximum of about 200, 203 foot-pounds of energy that you can squeeze out of it. And that, by the way, is if you fire the 22 through a rifle. If you fire it through a pistol, it's got usually 30 to 50% less energy than if you fire it out of a rifle. If I take the 9mm and pop it in that carbine, which is, just so you know, carbine just means smaller rifle. If I pop it in that carbine, it's going to be more powerful now, and that bullet is coming out, instead of at 1150 feet per second, it's coming out at around 1450 feet per second, which is causing this now to have, for, instead of 350 foot-pounds of energy, it's now got about 400 and 420 foot-pounds of energy, which is to the point where it's getting somewhat impressive, especially for this little of a cartridge with that little of powder in it. Now, as far as penetration goes, the 9mm generally will out-penetrate the .22 caliber. It might be surprising and it might not. The 9mm is bigger and it's got more pressure in the cartridge. 34,000 psi in the chamber of a 9mm. That's max specifications. The .22 is about 24,000 psi maximum chamber pressure. The 9mm has more bullet drag because it's bigger, but it's got more weight and power to it, so it tends to every time penetrate further than the .22 long rifle does. If you're looking for a defensive option, don't consider the .22 long rifle. If you're looking for just a one gun for everything and you want defensive use as well, don't consider the .22. Look into the 9mm. The 9mm will do great for target shooting, not quite as cheap as the .22, but it's still a great target shooting option in both pistols and in carbines now, which are more popular. And it's great for small game hunting. I know I advocate that for some people, but and I tend to get these weird looks because they say 9mm for hunting? You can't shoot small game with a 9mm. Well, it's actually a fairly good choice. Even just in a full metal jacket bullet like this, a non-expanding bullet, that 9mm is going to cause a bigger hole than even my hollow point .22 long rifle, the expanding bullets. It's not going to cause an overly big hole in a full metal jacket, but it's going to cause a plenty good enough wound without doing too much damage to small game, even as small as a rabbit. It's actually a good option, and it's a plenty accurate cartridge as long as you can shoot it accurately, which is why I'm really liking that Ruger Pc Carbine more and more. A 9mm little compact rifle just sounds like an incredible gun to take, throw in my backpack when I go out camping or hiking, do some small game hunting with it perhaps. It just sounds really fun. And it is the 9mm is a better one cartridge for everything firearm than the .22. The .22 will work on small game, but it will not do anything adequately in the defensive arena. It's just too small to bet on. The 9mm is great defensively, and it's alright for small game hunting. Now, the .22 long rifle comes in 4 standard applications. That's your target round, your standard velocity, high velocity, and hyper velocity. And they're all branched into these categories, and it's based on velocity is what they're all based on, if you didn't catch that. Your target rounds are a lower velocity, generally just a little bit at the subsonic mark or just below, or at the speed of sound mark or just below, because the bullet tends to run a little smoother then. So you're talking about 1,050 feet per second. Not really a good choice for a hunting type use because it doesn't cause much damage. It will poke a hole, but there's much better options if you're wanting to cause vascular damage and take out a small game animal. Going up to the standard velocity, that's about 100 feet per second faster, about 1,150 feet per second. That's what's considered standard velocity. That's good for smaller size small game animals and still great for target shooting. But if you wanted to do more of a small game hunting, you really should go up to a high velocity, which is 1,250 feet per second. Once you get there, your bullets start acting differently. They start expanding a little bit, they start penetrating much deeper, and they punch a better hole. And then you can go up to the hypervelocity, which is 1,450 feet per second, on up to the fastest ones are like the CCI Stingers, a little bit above 1,600 feet per second. Those are great options for your small game environment hunting, anything in the high velocity to hypervelocity. My personal favorite are the Agita Interceptor hollow points. They're going about 1,470 feet per second for a heavier weight, a 40 grain weight .22 bullet, and they're wonderful options for small game hunting. For the 9mm, you come in standard weight categories of 115 grains, 124 grains, and then your heavy hitters are 147 grains. Those are your standard 3. Your 124 and 115 grains are your standard full metal jacket bullets, which are great for target shooting, and honestly they perform well for small game as well. If you want something for defensive use, or possibly even for more of a medium game hunting, you need to look at the hollow points in a plus P rating, the faster, higher pressure hollow points, which, by the way, the plus P hollow points penetrate about the equivalent to the non-plus P full metal jackets. So you'll get wonderful penetration still, and they're hot hitters. They impress me when I'm running my ballistics tests. So if you're looking for small game hunting, any of the full metal jacket ammo will do. If you want something more for medium game or defensive use, look for a plus P hollow point. Any name brand hollow point that says plus P is the best recommendation. Whether or not you want to look for defensive use or not, go with the 22. If you don't, go with the 9mm for potential defensive use as well. I recommend the 9 because it's got defensive capabilities. But whichever one you choose is ultimately up to you. So make your choice. Just remember, you don't have to live with it permanently. You can always get another gun. Thanks for watching Michigan Sharpshooters. I hope you enjoyed this. If you found this useful, interesting, or liked the video, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button. That'll help me and YouTube keep getting these videos out to you. Thanks. Bye now.